Going live.
Hey y'all, I am James Wright and welcome to the shop. It is time for the monthly Q&A. Normally we do this one on the weekend that falls on a teen, but for the next 2 weeks my wife and I are going to be gone, so we won't be doing any lives over the next 2 weeks. Sorry, but yeah, we're going to be gone.
A happy gone.
Yeah, and I will not have internet connection capable of doing a live, so sorry. So for those of you who are new, we do a live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, except for the ones we're gone. And most of the time we're doing a joint or working through a project or answering questions, but today we're doing the Q&A. So if you have questions, throw those into the chat and we will get to them as soon as we can. If you are watching this recorded, then go down in the description and all of the questions that have been asked have a timestamp beside them that'll get you roughly to where they are in the video. So it makes it a lot easier for the Q&As, so you can just read down through the questions and see if there's one you want answered. And I kind of like it like that. Things coming up. No lives over the next 2 weeks. March is Workbench Con down in that place down south. Georgia. Atlanta, there we are. I did that last time, didn't I? And I don't have too much else coming up. Very soon here, we'll probably be getting the notes for the Milwaukee tool meet. And I'm hoping to be there for that one. That one's usually in February. And then later in April, we do one just down the street from me. So stay tuned. We're going to have some fun. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. What's the first one?
Hang on.
She's got to catch up.
Let's see. Matt W. Hi, James. Do you have a recommendation on leg vise screw placement, parentheses, distance down from the top of the vise chop? Seems like a trade-off between capacity and clamping force.
Yeah, basically it is a trade-off between capacity and clamping force. So let me flip this one around so you can see the two that I have here. 3, there we go. So I've got 2 leg vices on this. Do you need 2 leg vices? No, but teaching, I like having more vices so I can show more things. This one is down a little bit lower than that one, but that one has a wooden screw on it, whereas this one has a Hovarder, which is a smooth bore, really cool shaft. I really like this one. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, how far down should it be? It depends on how much do you want to work in here. And usually I want to say at least 6 inches. You want to have 6 inches. But from the pin down to whatever you're pushing against. In this case, the crisscross is going to be right here. I don't want this distance down to be, I don't want this to be more than twice this distance. So if I have 6 inches here, I want to make sure I have at least a foot from this pin down to that cross. I would like to have more. The more you get, the stronger the clamp. Now, with my old one, not my old one, I made them at the same time. This one has the wooden screw. And on this one, I gotta actually turn this one, it doesn't go fast. This one has the pin board all the way down at the bottom. And the nice thing about that is it means there's more leverage from the pin board up to here. So I've got actually about the same distance down on this. I think I'm about 8 inches down to the screw, from the top of the bench to the screw. But I've got probably twice as much distance down that way. So I can put far more force on this wooden screw than I can on that metal Hovarder vise, just because of the leverage that I'm using on here. So it's one of those things that, yeah, 6 inches is a minimum. I like about 8 inches. It's rare that I need more than 8 inches. But it also depends. If you have a short bench, you might want to tighten that up a little bit. So yeah, I think those are the guidelines. Never make it less than 1/3 of the distance from the screw down to your whatever you're pushing against at the bottom. So good question. Actually, I don't think I answered that one the last time I did a leg vise build. I should do that. So cool. What's next?
Craig Preston asked, yellow handle Harbor Freight chisels. Not sure if they were in your spreadsheet, but at 4 for $5, I keep them handy for a quick fix around the shop. Thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't do those specific ones. I did the plastic blue-handled ones, which are basically the same thing. It wouldn't surprise me if they were the same chisel, they just had a different plastic put on them. And yeah, they were horrible. Honestly, they were just about as... Actually, I think my screwdrivers would have performed better than those did. They're absolute trash. Do you never need something like that? Okay, I'm trying to think. Because I have one. I keep one junky Harbor Freight wooden handle chisel. The wooden handle ones are actually pretty decent. I've used those quite a bit. Trying to think of the last time I used this thing. I mean, I don't even use this for glue cleanup. I use my good ones for glue cleanup. I can't remember. So, I mean, is it worth it to have a cheap tool like that to beat up? I guess if you're going to be beating up on things, but if you're beating up on things, it usually means you're replacing skill with force. At least that's the way it usually comes out to me. So I guess that depends on you. For me, no. The only reason I keep that one is for teaching's sake. Every now and then I might want to pull out a junky junky chisel to show off. But I've got another 60-some screwdriver, 60-some chisels over in the cabinet over there from testing and other things. So I don't need that one. Interesting question though. What's next?
Greg Preston again. I think there was a typo on here.
A typo?
Yeah, because it says whole on the subject. I wonder if it's saying while I'm on the subject.
Voice to text.
That was a brain tease. Do you guys keep any cheap tools to sort of protect the good ones from necessary abuse or maybe loaning the kids?
Not really. I mean, well, okay. One of the things that I've recently started doing is I've been using these cheap construction Hovarder hardpoint saws for general breakdown rather than using my buck saw. And honestly, I'm kind of liking it for that because I don't need accuracy. I just need to cut a board, and when it gets dull, oh well, I'll give it to the kids and let them have fun. I do have a pile of toys down that the kids usually would use to bash around. So yeah, there may be some use for that, but most of the time those things are things that I've gotten with other things or things that people have given me, or just whenever you're getting antique tools, you usually get a box lot and you want that one tool, and there's a bunch of other things in there. There's like 7 braces you get in every box. I think I've got like 13 braces down there. So yeah, do I keep them intentionally for that purpose? No. But there are a few cases where that might be useful. I have to think on that one, though. It's an interesting question. What's next?
Hang on. They are very...
Wow, it looks like we're getting in a list.
Yes.
So we may not get to all the questions tonight, but we'll hit as many as we can.
I'm trying to stay on top of that.
I'll try and speed.
S.J. LaRue asked, would like your opinion on using construction adhesive to attach a piece of trim to end grain. There will be no load on it, but I am more concerned with wood movement. For context, I am making an end table much like the one you made, and I want to add a trim piece to the front of it.
I have not had very good experience with any construction adhesive. I tried a whole bunch of them. I put a couple on the glue test, and they did not hold up very well. Honestly, I think I would be more apt to use something like hot glue. Because it's got a lot of flexibility and it stays flexible. It's not something that ever really hardens. And so my initial thought would be hot glue, especially over construction adhesive. Construction adhesive eventually gets hard. Well, I mean, not all of them. Some of them, there's a bunch that stay soft. Yeah. Because you're always going to have wood movement if you're going on end grain. Yeah, I think I would probably lean for hot glue, but construction adhesive probably wouldn't be a bad choice for that. I mean, worst case scenario, it falls off. Well, you know how to put it back on. So it's really not a huge downside to it. So I would say don't overthink it too much. Use what you've got. That's one of the fun things. I'll build something and be like, oh, that'll never last. And it's like, oh, well, it took me 10 minutes to make. I'll make another one sometime in the future. And I've got tools that people said, oh, that wouldn't last another 3 weeks. I've been using them, bashing on them for 10 years. And they're still working fine. Someday they'll break. But until then, I'll make a new one when they do. What's next?
Alex Adams.
Hey, Alex.
Will you be making Sarah a Valentine's present?
Shh, I'm not talking. No, but
Pretty
actually,
hard on the boat.
I'm making her a birthday present for my birthday. That's what I do.
Is it something that keeps my phone and glasses on the nightstand?
There's a running joke in our house that every night at least one of the phone or glasses will hit the floor. I think gravity's just a little stronger on her side of the bed, so.
I'm shorter.
My
so
glasses never fall off onto the floor, so.
I see what you did there. Ha ha.
Hey, is that a super chat?
It is.
Dad Gamet. Thank you, man. What we got?
What does he say? I am a strip boat builder. You don't say that every day. Building 10 to 12 boats a year and generally a couple hundred 12-to-1 scarf joints on each one. How would you cut them efficiently? Just looking for different ideas.
Scarf joints are an absolute pain, and in all honesty, if you're making more than one, you're making a jig. Because it takes less time to make a jig for two than it does to cut two by hand. Although when you're doing like strip canoe with a small cedar strips, it's a little bit different. You can cut quite a few of those pretty quickly by hand. But yeah, creating a jig is definitely the way to go. I think I would find a jig that I could set up to do it with two tools. One to rough it, and then one to come in with a plane and do that final pass and smooth it. Although what that would be, it would probably end up being something similar to Kumiko jig, which I did a video not too long ago on making Kumiko. Actually, I did a video on making this particular jig. But you can set this in here, and the strip comes out so you can plane down. And so if you had tracks on the other side to hold the plane like a shooting board so that the sides of the plane would ride on those tracks and it would shave it off every time. I think that's how I would do it for a finishing pass, but I have never had to do a bunch of scarf joints. Usually it's just one or two in a project. So that would be a very interesting one though. If you've got any ideas and you want me to do a video, let me know. That might make a fun one. And I'd love to see pictures of what you do. I had a friend who made a cedar strip canoe. It was a cedar strip kayak. It was like, I think 12 foot long. He made it in his basement. And there was no way he's going to get out because the stairs turned and turned again to go out into the living room. So I asked him, how are you going to get it out there? And he said, well, I got it figured out. And he said, okay, in 3 weeks' time on this day, I'm going to be taking it out of the house. Can you come over and give me a hand for about 6 hours? I said, like 6 hours to get the canoe out of the basement? He said, yeah, I've got a whole plan for it. And I show up, and his wife is gone. He had paid for his wife to go on an overnight trip that day. So she was gone. And we go into the house, we remove all the furniture from the living room, we peel back the carpet, we take up the OSB subfloor, we cut the joists to pull the canoe up into the living room and take it out the front door. We sister back on and put joists back in. We put the OSB down. We pull and stretch the carpet again and close it all up. And his wife never figured out how he got it out of the basement.
Well, she does now.
So, yeah, lots of fun. What's the, do you have a mom joke?
I do.
What
do you call my mom's sister with red hair?
Your mom's sister with red hair, what?
A fire ant.
A fire ant. Got it.
I heard that one. I was like, I like it. Actually, I should say my dad's sister because they're the ones that have the red hair.
Yes. What's next?
Oh, I like Adam's thinking. Sounds like James needs to pay for an overnight trip for Sarah while he makes her birthday present. Oh, we have another super chat.
No, another one.
Let's see. Peter DeWitt.
Thank you.
Your plane till holds the plane vertical with only a cleat near the knob? Question mark. Any issue with a plane falling or being bumped out of the till?
No. I've only had a plane fall out of there once, and that was when I was putting it in. And I put it in, and I didn't rest it on the bottom, and I let go, and it fell because I had let go and nothing was underneath it. But no, actually, the interesting thing about this design is the way it holds it basically guarantees it's locked in there. Its weight holds it in place. So what you've got is a piece up here holding it, and all of the weight is over here. There is no weight on this side of the equation. So this plane wants to swing in this way. So it's forcing itself against that wall. And who was it? It was, what's his name? Canadian, not Wendell. I can't remember his name. YouTube channel. He's a Canadian. He does a bunch of interesting tests. He does a bunch of glue tests as well.
Not the French guy.
What's that?
Not the French
No,
guy.
not Le Piquois. Yeah, someone will post in the comments in a moment. He actually did one of those like 6 years ago, I think, and he mounted one on the front of his ATV and drove around the yard with it, and it took forever for the thing to fall off because it's very fascinating how the logistics of it hold it in place. So it's a incredibly strong way of holding it down. Matthias Wendell, there we are. No, not Giant Heinz, the other one. Matthias Wendell.
Not that one.
You know, the other Canadian, there's only like 3 of them.
Eh? That was bad. Okay, hang on. I wasn't ready for a mom joke. I'm going to give you a question.
Give me
we'll
a
come back
question
to the
then,
mom joke. Andrew Brimmer asked, what moisture range is optimum for most projects?
Moisture range, as in the number you read, is worthless. Do not look at the number. It is not important. It will not tell you anything. You will hear out there that your moisture should be somewhere between 6 and 15 degrees, 6 and 15%. Usually 9 to 12 is what most people shoot for. However, that number doesn't mean anything. In my shop, my lumber, if I go and test all my lumber that's been sitting here for years, it will be anywhere from 5 to 15%. Because different lumber holds different moisture levels, even in the exact same shop. And if I were to take it upstairs and put it in the garage, it would be a wildly different number because there's a different moisture level up there. It's fairly dry down in my shop. So it's not about what moisture number should it get to, but is it dry? And the best way to tell that is at least the easiest way to tell that is to cut off a small piece off the end and weigh it with a very accurate scale, and then come back every month, depending upon how much you need to remove from it. And you'll see that its measurement goes down as it loses moisture. And then eventually it will stop losing moisture and it'll come back at the same reading. And you know that's when it's dry in that particular room. And so what you can do is take your moisture meter and put it into it and read that number. That is when that wood in that dry with that moisture meter is dry. And then you can test your wood and wait for the rest of the wood to reach that number. But with a small block, it will lose its moisture much, much faster than the rest. So that's usually the best way to tell quickly and easily. There are a whole lot of different methods, but the actual number means nothing. So don't worry about what percentage you're looking for, because every board is going to be different in every room, and every moisture meter is slightly different too. So it's a moving target. You got a mom joke?
We don't want wood movement. Anyways, yes. What's green fuzzy, has 4 legs, and will kill you if it falls out of a tree?
Sarah? I'm gonna die. Well, it's gonna kill me, so yeah. Wasn't it? What is it?
It wouldn't be up in the tree in the first place. A pool table.
Yeah. Who did?
Alex, he owes me 2 now. 2 trips.
I owe you more than that.
You do. You really do. You're in deep.
I ain't never getting out of this hole. I'm going to keep shoveling for the rest of my life until I get out the other end.
Do you hear some Chinese in the distance?
What's next?
I don't know. Davon DeGruttola. I don't think I said that right at all. What is the best way to do a mortise and tenon? Carefully.
There is no best way. That's one of the things when you anything in woodworking, there is no best way. Every woodworker is different. Everyone has a different collection of tools. Everyone has different things that they find enjoyable. So picking the best way is different for everyone. Now, particularly the big question is, do you cut the mortise first or the tenon first? I like to cut the tenon first because I find it easier to mark the mortise with the tenon. And the idea of the other argument is that it's easier to modify the tenon to match the mortise. Well, at the end, when I've got both of them, they're not quite matching, I can modify either one of them. So I've never understood that argument. So, yeah. It's very, very difficult to mark the tenon off of the mortise. But you can mark the mortise off of the tenon fairly easily. I've got a bunch of videos on how to make mortise and tenon, so if you want to see my exact method, I would say go take a look at one of those. But yeah, I'm a tenon first kind of guy. What's next?
Idle Hands Workshop. Let's see. The Stanley No. 203 block plane. I shot you an email, not so aggressive, about this. Can you provide any insight on those that have a 10-centimeter ruler on the cheek?
The 203 block plane. I'm going to have to look that one up because I don't remember which one that is. Stanley made a lot of different block planes. Let me see. STANLEY BLOCKPLANE. What was the number? The 203?
203.
Oh, okay. And he was asking about the ruler on the cheek. What was that?
Can you provide any insight on those that have a 10-centimeter ruler on the cheek?
I have no idea about that. And the pictures I'm looking at, I'm not seeing any with that. Yeah, I have no idea. And I don't remember that email. So send it to me again. Because I usually answer all my emails. James Wright at woodbywright.com. All one word, James Wright, woodbywright.com. I'm kind of interested. I don't know what you're talking about, so send me an email. What's next?
Let's see. Alex Adams. I am now able to control the temperature and humidity in my shop. What would be the ultimate range to keep it? Didn't you just answer that? Kinda.
I didn't hear what you said.
Temperature and humidity in the shop. Optimum range.
Oh, there is no optimum range. Whatever you have is what you have. The most important thing is that you just try and keep it the same. Because if you keep it the same, then once you bring wood in, it can acclimatize to that shop. And if you're doing joinery, then it's going to stay at that moisture level the whole time it's in there. Mine, I like to keep around 25 to 45% humidity. My shop is usually around 66 to 68 degrees year round. So one of the nice things about being in the basement is it kind of keeps around that. That's what I like, but the most important thing is that you keep it about the same for your shop. If you are making things to then go to other places, then you might want to try and keep your shop whatever those other places commonly are. So if you keep making things for yourself, then try and make it match what the rest of your house is like. If you're shipping them in other places around the world, then good luck, because whatever you make it, it's not going to be like that where it goes somewhere else, and wood's going to move, and so you just have to plan for that. Wood is always moving. But yeah, it's not really important about where you keep it as long as you keep it about the same. The downside is if your shop is always changing, then your wood is always changing. And if you do the joinery one day, then you come back and put it together the next day, and it's done something different in between. not as much fun. What's next?
All right, hang on. John Hayes, what's the size measurements for small projects where wood movement doesn't matter, per length and width of wood pieces?
Length doesn't matter at all. Wood does not change in length dimension. I mean, it does technically. There's an ever so slight heat change, but due to moisture, the wood length does not change. So you could have a 30-foot long board, and its movement would be almost immeasurable. So lengthwise doesn't matter. The width and height, that does change, but it changes mostly in circumference of the log. Hey, look at that, I've got a log here. So, here. We've got ourselves a log. I'm going to change this over.
Oh, I skipped it.
We got a crack here because the log changes in diameter this way. And so as it shrinks in circle. It does shrink from the outside in a little bit, but not as much as it shrinks around the grain. So it depends on how your board is cut out of it. If you have a board that is cut straight out from the core, then you have either a riven or a quarter sawn board. And that's going to be the most stable because it's going to be wanting to change this way and not so much this way. But if I have this board here, this board is going to want to expand and contract here. And at this point, it's going to want to expand and contract this way. And at this point, it's going to expand and contract this way. So this board is going to want to cup and twist and go all over the place. And that's why flat sawn is usually what you want to stay away from. As to how much will it move, it depends on the wood. It depends on so many other characteristics. In general, the harder the wood, the less it moves. The softer the wood, the more it moves. In general, there are different species that will buck that trend. But in my case, if it's under 6 inches, 90% of the time, I don't think about wood movement. Unless it's going to be outside. If it's going to be outside, I think about wood movement no matter what size it is. But if it's going to be living inside in an average air-conditioned house, if it's under 6 inches, I don't think about wood movement much. If you go over a foot, any cross-grain correction longer than a foot, pretty much anywhere, I'm going to think about wood movement. If you go over 2 feet, wood movement is very important and something to think about. So that's my general. And as with anything, it's going to change. If it's outside and larger than 1 inch, I'm thinking about wood movement because the moisture swing out there is wild. But in an air-conditioned house, moisture swing's not that much. I mean, a 4-foot table inside might, inside air-conditioned, you might have a movement of a 1/16 of an inch off of 4 feet. But that same table outside, I may have a full 1/4 to 1/2 inch, depending upon the wood. So, yeah. What's next?
I skipped Dr. Khan's question. I'm so sorry. Let's see, Dr. Khan, has James ever been to Brown's Tool Auction? Their combo MWTCA meet is this month, and I wonder if I'm missing out by not being able to go, or is it all the super collectibles only fit to drool over?
I have not been able to get to that one. I really, really wanted to. I was thinking I was going to do it, and I was thinking I was going to do it this year, and realized that I booked our vacation on top of it. So I got to do one or the other. I'm going on vacation. Sorry. But yeah, one of these days I want to get out there. From what I've seen, people I've talked to, it has everything. You will find the cheap junky stuff where they're selling it by the box lot, and you will find the really cool, really rare, so it's a little of this and a little of that. So, yeah. From what I've seen, what I've heard, if I had the choice to go to that or go to a national MWTCA meet, I'd probably go to a national MWTCA meet, but that's a very, very close second. However, with the caveat, this year in August is Handworks. Big thing, big thing. Everyone pay attention. Handworks, Iowa. It is the big thing in the hand tool world. It used to happen once every 2 years, but it hasn't happened since, what is it, 2016 now? Something like that? 2017? It's been a long time. And it's huge. It's Amana, Iowa, And for a whole weekend, the entire town is devoted to hand tools. And they have barns with tools for sale. Every name of everyone who's ever been involved with hand tools is there. You will find everyone. And so I'm looking forward to being there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned.
When's that?
I want to say it's August, but I have to look up. But if you go to if you Google Handworks, all one word, you'll come across it. But yeah, they haven't. I don't think they've, because it's free to go to, because it's the town. You walk around town, and there's a few things you can pay for. But the problem is hotels. There aren't many hotels around, so you got to stay a little ways out of town and drive in. But yeah, I'll see you all there. What's the next question?
Guess I know what you're doing in August now. Let's see. Charles McBride. Do you have any tips on stopping dust from getting in the house? My wife hates it. Hand tools. Honestly, curls, I don't find them to, they do occasionally, but it'll be like 1 or 2 curls here or there. And when you do, you can pick up a curl and throw it away. Whereas the dust, have you really ever noticed dust anywhere outside the shop other than like the laundry room? Just if you track it on your clothes, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you also have a trek to get. I mean, most of it settles on the stairs.
Yeah, it's outside my shop is the laundry room, and that gets most of it, and the laundry room's always dirty. So I try and sweep it and clean it out occasionally, but it's dusty by itself. But yeah, then I have to go out into the basement and then up the stairs, and then I get into the house proper. So I've got a decent distance to go. But
I mean, I guess you could put a vacuum right here and vacuum yourself off.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be the best person to say, other than I really had no problems with it with hand tools, other than occasionally a curl grabs a pant leg and follows me, but then you can pick it up and throw it away.
If you don't wear the shoes out of here.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's the other thing, is I wear clogs. And the reason I wear these is I can very easily slip them on and off. They stay at my door, and I wear socks throughout the rest of the house. So when I walk into the shop, my foot slides in and I walk. And I put them on as I walk through. It takes me 0 extra time, and I take them off as I walk out. It takes me 0 extra time because I literally just walk out of them. So having shoes you can slide on and off makes it really, really nice. And that's one of the reasons why I have these, is they slide on and off very easily. So my socks don't usually get dirty in the shop, so they don't take things out, and my shoes aren't dragging anything because my shoes stay in the shop. So I guess that's probably the best piece of advice I could give. Get some clogs.
Just
what's next?
put them out of the way of your wife's feet. So
Yeah, don't let your wife
kick
trip
'em.
over them. Yeah, then you'll
Look
you'll
at the
be happy.
camera. It looks dusty.
What's that?
Oh yeah, that camera's dusty.
Oh yeah, everything in the shop is dusty. Yeah.
But that doesn't come upstairs.
But it's a very slow accumulating, incredibly light dust. It's not like sawdust that you'd have from a table saw or such. Yeah, things are going to be dusty in a shop no matter what you do.
They are slippers.
What's that? Yeah, well, if you go back and watch my earliest videos, I had Adidas sandals that I would slide on and off. And I got so many comments of, you shouldn't wear sandals in a shop. Yeah, I guess so, but it's my shop. I can do what I want to do. It's really no problem. So I got enough people complaining about it. I decided to get clogs that have protected feet, and I love these things. I wear them literally every day, and they are incredibly comfortable, and I can stand in them all day long, and I love them. What's next?
Caneycreek woodcarver. What is the best way to sharpen molding planes?
Traditionally, you did it with a slipstone, at least for inside curves. And the outside curves, you sharpen whatever stone you have, just like you would do a scrub plane. I actually prefer to get sandpaper and wrap it around a dowel. Or, let's see if I have those in here. Dropping things, making a mess. Ah, good, I do have them in here. I have my waves. These are what I use now. But before these, I just got dowel and sandpaper, and you can go to the auto parts store and get sandpaper up to like 6,000 grit or so. Usually for most molding planes, I stop around 1,000 grits, and I'll just strop after that. And a strop is really easy because you can just bend it over and shape it to whatever you want. But I like to use these things. These are from DMT, and they call them the DMT Wave. And so I've got a coarse and a rough, and so I find a spot that matches it, and I'll just do that one spot, and I can do inside and outside curvatures. And so these make things really easy and slick. So I use these quite a bit when I'm doing odd shapes. Plus they kind of match the whole diamond stone sharpening. They work basically the same way. So yeah, it's my way. DMT Wave sharpeners. They aren't cheap. I want to say they're like 40, 50 bucks a piece, though that was a while ago, so who knows what they are now. What's next?
John Hayes asked, for wood movement, what is the best methods for projects when jointing?
Usually the best practice is don't make your joinery until you're ready to put it together. And you want to make the distance from making the joinery to putting it together to be the least amount of time. Because if you make your joinery and then you move on and do something else, you come back to it, wood has moved a little bit, especially if you're in a shop where temperatures and humidities change. So that's the big thing is limit the amount of time between making it and putting it together. Because often putting it together will constrain it and hold it in place. And it's just like using a breadboard on the end of it. It will stop the table from cupping and bending on the end because you have that board constraining it to keep it in place. Another thing I've done a few times is if you're going to have to leave it for a while, then put it together. Make the joinery and put the joinery together and store it together rather than separate. Because that just kind of constrains and holds things in. Now you may come back and find that tenons have swelled in the joint and it's really hard to get apart. And then you have the choice of do you trim down the joinery, trim down the tenon to fit the mortise a little better or whatnot. But usually the big key is less time in between the two. So, did I answer that question? I think I did.
Well, you gave an answer. I don't know if it was specifically for the question.
What's next?
Just so everybody knows, I don't know that we're going to make it through the questions I've pulled out. So anything after this point, we probably are not going to get to. Just
unless you put a super chat up. Then
unless you super chat. Let's see. Davon DeGruttola. However, how do you do a half lap?
Like I do a half lap. It's like a half a tenon that you do twice. So you're basically making one tenon. And so generally I treat a half lap just like a tenon. I've got at least 3 live videos detailing exactly step by step making a half lap. I think I have at least one shorter, like 10-minute video on a half lap joint. You know, I haven't done any of the shorter joint videos. I should do a series on those here soon. But I did a project a while ago where we made a joinery window, and it is 6 boards with 9 joints between them, and so it's a way to do 9 different joints that come together. And I probably need to do another one of those here soon because I do one of those every 2 years or so. But one of the joints in that is an end half lap, and another one is a mid-range teeing half lap. But it's basically like cutting half a tenon. So you're cutting a cheek and a shoulder, and then on the other one you're cutting a cheek and a shoulder, and the two go together. So I guess that would be the easiest way to describe it without actually taking the time to show you. But yeah, go ahead and take a look at, if you search in YouTube, wood by Wright half lap, you'll come up with a couple videos. But particularly if you search for joinery window, you'll come up with the whole series that I have on those joints, and 2 of them are half laps. What's next?
Well, Tom West just.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
Hey, James, when are you going to break out the Empire saw?
When are you going to break out the what?
Empire saw?
I don't know what the Empire saw is.
Tom, we need clarification.
I do need clarification. What is the Empire saw?
That's the one Darth Vader uses.
Empire saw.
Bum, bum, bum.
Images.
Bum, bum, bum. It's part of my
duh. my scroll saw. Yeah. Well, okay, yeah. So here I've got this thing over here, and it is a great cord
says
capture.
Empire right on it.
Yeah, it says Empire right on the side here. So it's a scroll saw, but it's also a really good extension cord holder. There's a couple problems with it, and I haven't taken the time to solve them. And so it's one of those things where I just have to take the time to do it. The head attachment I have on there isn't the original, and it's kind of cobbled together. The flywheel works. I made a wooden flywheel for it, but it's slightly out, and it kind of rubs on the side, and it's a bit slow. And there's a few other things that make it work, but it's a pain. That, and I don't do a lot of scroll saw work. Other than I have a wooden clock I want to make, and it would be the beautiful thing to do, except for I haven't taken the time to actually work on it. And the problem is all those little projects I want to do on it, I really can't think of a way of making a video on that because it's not going to really be that interesting. So I would have to take time away from making videos to fix that up, to then make videos that I'm probably not making right now. So yeah, it's on the list, but it's down there a ways. If I had an original flywheel for it, it would probably be a very different story. But yeah, I'm missing so many parts on that. And part of me says I should probably just sell that one, and because I'm never going to be able to find the flywheel, but I could buy one that has the flywheel already. And so if I sold this one, I could have 70% of the money to buy one that already has the flywheel and bring that one down here. And I could do that. But part of me says I would actually rather than buy that, I'd rather buy a foot-powered mortiser, because that would be a lot of fun to have in the shop, and I do a lot of tenons and mortises. So I'm kind of going back and forth on that. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe someday, but I don't do a lot of scroll work, so it's not high on my list. What's next?
Tom's a mom joke.
What's he got?
You ready? Did you hear about the guy who swallowed 6 plastic horses?
What?
They say he's in stable condition.
Yeah, I like that one.
I know you do.
What's next?
All right. Who's next? Matt Tomon. What do you think of the Walmart chisels?
I haven't heard of a Walmart brand chisel. I haven't tested that one. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look that one up. I've tested a lot of them, like 40 some chisels. But I haven't played with that one. So yeah, I'll have to look that one up. Thanks for the heads up. What's next? That was a fast one.
It was a fast one. I wasn't quite ready. Let's see. Capitals. Oh, capital. I can't read. I'm assuming it's supposed to be Captain Slam. Starting to get into purchasing rough-sawn lumber from a mill or a hardwood center. Any advice on designing projects with this? I'm used to designing everything around dimensional home center lumber.
Yeah. Always assume you're going to take off more meat than you are expecting. So if you have a 4/4 rough board, you can probably get a 3/4 board out of it. Not always. Just understand that there are going to be boards where you've got a 1/4 inch to play with, and it seems like, oh yeah, I could get a thicker board out of it than 3/4, and you can't always do that. Rough sawn lumber, depending upon its condition, how warped and cut it is, it's an island just fell. One of the islands fell off of the wall.
Oh, you meant upstairs. I'm like, what are you?
Yeah, we just put up a world map on the wall, and it has adhesives that go onto the wall, but our problem is our wall is textured, and so they don't hold very well, so I'm having to replace some of them with better adhesive. Side thing, it just hit the floor above me. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is don't always assume the thickness you're going to get out of it. Especially if there's any cup or warp to it, you're going to end up taking off more. And I've had a couple times where I've gotten a 4/4 board and I can only get a 1/2 inch board out of it. So just be ready for, you don't always have what you think you have. Other than that, the only difference between rough stock and buying pre-dimensioned lumber is that you have to spend more time up front milling it and shaping it. The nice thing about that is you get far more into what do you want, where do you want to pull the lumber out, your pieces out of the lumber. And so you have a little bit more control about it, but it does mean you're going to be putting more time into it. So just be warned. It's not a simple cut and paste thing. It's going to take some time. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest advice I could give off the top of my head. What's next?
Let's see. Greg Preston X. Jorgensen is offering a line of chisels, planes, saws, etc. in addition to their clamps. They seem pretty nice. Any experience with these yet? I saw them at the Blue Box store.
No, I have not yet played with them yet. I have heard mixed results. And so far they seem to be hitting their price point with the expected value you see out of the price point. It sounds like they're trying to aim for something that is a higher quality, but doing it at a lower price point means they're going to be skimping on some of that. So they're putting in features that you generally only find on a higher quality, but the features that they're putting in are kind of like half-baked or not quite as fit and finished as you'd want. But I haven't had a chance to try it, so I don't know. And I do, when I get back from vacation, one of the things I'm planning on doing is doing a large plane test and testing a lot of affordable, cheaper planes and putting them head-to-head. So stay tuned for that, because I'm going to be doing something with the community. There's no way in the world I could ever buy that many planes to actually test. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting up a thing of saying, hey, I want to test these planes. If you want to buy one, send it to me. I'm going to fix it up, get it running, tune it up, and shape it up, and then I'll ship it back to you. That way I can use them for the test, and the person buying it then gets a plane that's actually in working condition. But stay tuned. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to make that work, but that'll probably be mid to late February I'll be putting that out.
Please tell me you're calling it the ship out, shape up.
Shape up, ship out? Yes. And we do it all on a plane. What's next?
Let's see. Captain Hoke. James, this may seem silly. Never silly here. But do you see any differences with your hard wax seasonally? My shop is outside and it gets pretty hot / humid in the summer.
Seasonally, not so much, because I'm in an air-conditioned house. However, yes, if they heat up, they get softer, and if they cool down, they get harder. And so it's one of those things where the softer they are, the more tacky it's going to be. So if you are in a place that is commonly very hot, you may want to make your wax with a harder wax, something like Carnauba or regular candle wax. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, temperature is going to change them. On my soft wax, as long as it's under about 100, 110, it's still fully applicable. It'll just go on a lot smoother at those highest temperatures. You go over 100, 110, and it's just going to be a wet mess. 120, it completely melts. The hard wax is a little bit better, but not by much. But if you're using it for tool lubrication, and you're in a hot location, you may want to make it with something a little bit harder. I like the beeswax for something around room temperature and up to like 80, 90 degrees, but hotter than that, and yeah, why would you even be working in a shop in those temperatures? What's next?
Let's see. Dennis Miko, have you had the misfortune to crack or break a hand plane?
I had one that chipped, but I don't know if I've ever broken the casting. No, I haven't. Because I had this one. Let me see if we can see it on here. Yeah, we can't see that still. This will be an interesting one to show because I fixed it. I fixed it. It is a bunt. And if you know what that reference is, put it in the comments. So here, this one, this is the plane I was telling you. I had one fall. It was this one. It was the 4.5. And you may be able to see it here. There's a thin hairline crack right here. And so this little piece of the cheek broke off. It didn't touch the sole, but it broke right there and then right along the bottom here. And so that small piece broke off. And so to fix it, grabbed some JB Weld and stuck it back on there. It was about 2 years ago. It's working great. I honestly expected it to fall right off next time I used it, but no, it's been on there the whole time and works out great. But no, I have never broken a casting.
Let's not tempt fate.
What's next?
Let's see. Xavier Garcia. Have you ever used or made a miter jack? If so, what's your take on it? I recently found out about such a jig and I'm curious about it. Thanks.
A miter jack as in a shooting board jack plane? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I have used them in the past. I don't really like them. It feels odd. I'd rather have an actual shooting board plane. But I've never made one. So maybe someday. Make an interesting video. Is that another super chat?
Yes.
Himtalica.
Himtalica.
Thank you. What do we got?
Do you have a good source for buying replacement blades for tapered molding planes and for the Stanley 79 side rabbet?
Those are specific blades. Tapered molding planes. I think you're meaning tapered irons. The replacement irons I have purchased in the past were from Lee Nielsen, and you can shape them and then harden them. But I don't remember if they were tapered or not. I can't remember. And if memory is serving me correctly, Lee Nielsen has discontinued making those. I would actually have to look for that because I haven't looked for replacement molding plane irons in a while. I would probably look at Red Rose Reproductions. I think my brain is saying that he sells them, and I'd also go look at Tools for Working Wood. But I don't remember exactly. I'd have to look up that one, so sorry. But the Stanley 79 side rabbet plane. Something like that, if there's a specific plane, particularly a Stanley number, I would probably go to eBay and search on there first. If you go to handtoolfinder.com, down underneath the online sellers, I have a section of parts sellers, and those are people who specifically deal in plane parts, so I'd put it up on those. There is a group on Facebook called the Plane Parts Division, or Parts Division, I think is what it is. There's a full name to it, I can't remember what it is. And so there, I'll put something on there, and there's usually someone who has it. And if push comes to shove, I would go down the handtoolfinder.com list of online sellers. Every one of those online sellers has a bucket of parts out in the back, and I'm sure shooting half a dozen of them would have a replacement iron for that. But yeah, that would be my order of operations for finding one. eBay is, you're probably going to find one, but you're probably going to be spending a bit more. So if you're looking for a little bit more affordable, I'd go for some of those other items. But as to molding plane irons, I would have to do some more research because it's been 3 or 4 years since I bought them. And I want to say that Lee Nielsen has stopped selling them. Because that's where I purchased them from last time. So hope that answers your question. What's next? We got about 6 minutes left. We got a few more.
Well, we owe a mom joke.
What we got?
What do you call a fear of being trapped in a small room with Santa?
Claustrophobic?
Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. I could smell the smoke on that one. I was thinking hard. Well, what's next?
Hang on.
How many you got left on there?
More than we're going to get to.
We'll get as many as we can and be done at 9.
Let's see. Moonwolf Woodworking. What is the best way to measure for sinking a bowl with a lip in a board?
For sinking a bowl with a lip
in a board.
I have no idea what you're saying. I'm sorry, but you've lost me on that one. Send me an email and I'd be glad to answer it. But unfortunately, we got other questions to ask. What's next?
Anton H. I got a hold of a bunch of scrapped piano keys. How to determine if the black ones are ebony?
If they're wood, they're ebony. 99.9% of the time. You do get some that are dyed, but if it sounds like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's a duck. They're pretty common.
It's James waddling around.
Yeah. Usually, I mean, if they're African blackwood, you can see a lot more grain in them, whereas ebony is just like black. It's just black. There's very, very little grain that you can see in it. You cut into it and split into it. There's grain, but you can't see the rings, at least not very easily. You will find some that were dyed, but if it looks and feels like it, I would treat it the same and call it ebony. What's next?
Let's see. Ritesh Shahi? I'm really sorry if I butchered that. What is the hardest wood to work with?
Australian ironwood, I think, if I remember correctly, is the hardest wood. But I mean, when it comes to what's the most difficult wood to work with, it's probably curly white oak, at least in my book. It is stringy, the grain goes everywhere. You look at it funny and it's going to tear out. It's still very silicate, it dulls blades quickly. It's really annoying. But on that same vein, there are a lot of really twisted Australian woods that fall into the same characteristics. I just haven't had as much experience with them. So it's usually in my book, the more difficult the wood is, the more I want to play with it because it's fun and beautiful. Because if the grain's going wild, it's going to be difficult to work with, but you're going to get a lot of return on investment because it looks beautiful in the end. That with a lot of Australian woods, they often have a lot of reversing grain. In other words, the grain grows in a spiral pattern up the tree, and every few years it switches directions, and so the grain goes in opposite directions. So when you cut a board across it, you can plane this way, and half the grain you're going against the grain, and half the grain you're going with it. And so it can be an absolute pain. It's like planing plywood. What's next?
So are all those trees female?
Or what?
All those trees female. They start one way and then they change and then they continue.
She said it, folks, not me. I'm not touching that one. Oh, is that Dad Gamet again? Thank you.
Yes.
What's Dad got?
Just to see if Sarah can find a really good joke just before you run out of time. Thanks for all you do and have a great vacation. Use sunscreen, James.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know sunscreen.
And then we've got, I'm going to say this wrong, Adhikar Shone. Hello, Sarah and James. I'm glad I caught you live for a bit before bed. Is that how James describes Sarah? Yes, Alex, it is how he describes me.
Oh, thank you, man. You got neither masked a question?
No, they
want the mom jokes.
One says thank you and the other one
want to ask one more question while you pull out 2 jokes?
Okay, ready?
Okay.
If you drive a Subaru in reverse, what are you?
What?
You are a bus. If you spell Subaru.
You are a bus. I like it.
All right, I'll give you while I look up this next one. Rob Williams, do you have any tips on how to adjust the frog on a plane? I have a new cheap one that seems to be way off. I have the lever all the way over and it still doesn't cut a full shaving.
If the lever is all the way over, that usually means that the iron isn't cut square. It's not the frog. But yeah, first check the iron and make sure that the iron is square to the side. If the frog is actually twisted in its socket, then brute force and violent manipulation, if that doesn't work, you have a defective plane. Because most of the time the frog is pretty well constrained. It can't move much. So if the frog is that far out of alignment that it's causing the plane iron to cause problems, it's a defective plane. And in that case, I would be looking for a different plane. So that's not something you can just adjust. If it's a little bit out, there's a tiny bit of wiggle room, unless you're looking at like a bedrock style, which there's no wiggle room on those. At least there shouldn't be any wiggle room on those. But most of the time, if it's out of alignment, it's because that the blade isn't square to the side. It doesn't need to be perfectly square, but square enough that this visually is what you're looking for. You got the last one?
What happens if you accidentally drink holy water with a laxative?
I don't know. What would happen?
I just wanted to see your face when I read that. You would start a religious movement.
And on that note, folks, yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks until you see us again. So thank you. It's been a lot of fun. See y'all next time. Bye. Bye. Religious movement.